Hello and what is up, everybody? Welcome back to another replay commentary video, and I got for you guys that Wisper 3.4K IO spammer, if you remember him from Reddit a couple of days ago. But now I got him here with me. This is the first time I'm going to be doing this replay analysis of someone's replay with them. I guess it's kind of like replay coaching, or it pretty much is replay coaching, but we're not so much focused on coaching him how to play IO, but to just share ideas and try to teach you guys how you could be playing IO at 3K to 4K MMR, because a lot of the concepts that I can get from my games is kind of high level, and I think this is a good start for you guys to learn how to play IO, because most of you guys I know are around this MMR, and you can just basically get a lot more out of this. So say hi to everybody, Wisper.
Hey man, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no problem. I always wanted to do something like this during my 24-hour stream. I was planning on doing some type of content like this for my stream, but when you play IO for 24 hours, you actually lose it, especially when it's solo queue.
Sounds rough.
It hit like 4 a.m. or something, past midnight. I think it was like 7 a.m. or something like that, and I was gonna try to make a Reddit post to find someone to do a replay analysis with, someone who I was wanting to learn IO, or an IO player that also play IO at like lower MMR or something, so I can just go over a couple of things with them, but that just didn't happen. But I'm having a chance to do it now, so I'm glad that I will be able to make some type of video about this, and let's just get started. So in this game, looks like you're gonna go for the same build that you did in the other game that I went over. Did you have a clarity last time? I feel like you didn't.
Yeah, I do. I tend to keep it in my backpack because if I tend to buy 7 items, not 6, and if you put the clarity in your inventory, the animal courier doesn't automatically sort of open itself. And then you have it in your backpack and you forget about it, and that's a problem. So yeah, I tend to have a clarity in my backpack just for safekeeping.
Oh yeah, but so the thing about this build is I really like it. It's kind of similar to what I used to go, where it's just more like a battle IO build, where you just kind of want to just trade your regen with the enemy laners as much as possible, and they can't win pretty much. When you're playing against an IO with a Salve, Tango, and 2 Fairy Fires, any trade is going to be in your favor. The only thing about this is if they just go on you and actually just focus you, which I don't think, like, how often would you say that's a thing in your MMR bracket?
No, not terribly often, but there are definitely times where I run out of regen way faster than other times. I think the video you showed last time was Sven. I still had my salve at like 15 minutes.
Yeah.
There have definitely been times where I have a soul ring and nothing else. So it all depends on the lane you're up against.
Yeah, I even commented on it where I went over your other replay as well, and you ended up having a lot of regen too. That was the one where you upload to your YouTube channel. But the thing is, with IO, you can't go wrong with having just casual regen in your inventory. Sometimes I even find myself just buying tangos, like mid game, like 10 minutes in or something like that. I could use them to like kill wards and just heal up, especially if I don't have my tranquil boots. I just went for like brown boots because I was rushing an item that I really needed, like a glimmer or force or like a ghost scepter, or otherwise I would just die. Those are kind of like the hard games where I find myself just buying casual tangos, but it's never bad. And I do like this build for how you're playing the hero. But have you ever built bottle in the past, or it's just this is what you're gonna build now because it's what you find the most success with in your MMR bracket? Because I don't think it's bad at all. It's just not common, right? Most of the times people are buying bottle and IO now, especially at the highest level. But
I think it really depends on the hero that you're laning with. If I'm laning with an anti-mage, getting a Soul Ring Tranquils build doesn't do much for that anti-mage. Giving him lots of mana in very quick succession, he doesn't do anything with that. As compared to a hero like a Sven or a Luna, if I can keep them topped up with mana all the time, then they can spam their stuns out, they can pressure the enemies back, and they can really take the lane in an almost guaranteed format. So in this case, this is half the reason I get this amount of regen is because I don't have the healing from the bottle if I were to build bottle build. And in this specific scenario with Luna, I'm going for the Soul Ring. But yeah, I definitely build Bottle on heroes that don't have that, can't use that mana from the Soul Ring.
Yeah, because I think the main thing behind having Bottle is, first of all, being able to save your teammate in like a clutch scenario where they're taking way too much damage that I guess a salve could save them, but like clearly Tango's is not gonna cut it.
Yep.
Or when you're tower diving and you need to just heal to tank the tower, and in that sense, like when you have like a hero, I guess like a bristleback that you just want to, like for example, let's say you're dual offlaning here in this game with bristleback and you want to dive the Slark under tower or something like that, you probably benefit more from a Bottle than this build.
I
But
agree.
or like a, I guess a Slaughter, that was a thing. I remember when Slaughter wasn't meta yet, I used to do IO Slaughter off lane and just dumpster the safe lane. And in that type of scenario, yeah, Bottle would be really good, especially in dual mids as well, because a lot of times you end up diving the mid. But I think this build is perfectly acceptable for any IO that just wants to be a safe lane support, like 5 position safe lane support, just help the carry sustain and win the lane. And so you always go for Tranquils right after the Soul Ring, right?
Yes. The idea is that the Soul Ring gives way more mana than Bottle ever could. I think mathematically it puts out 3 times as much mana as Bottle does every 2 minutes, presuming you have 3 charges on the Bottle. And then the lacking part of that is that you don't have any strong, quick health regen, and that's where Tranquils comes in to sort of cover that area.
Yeah, I think I was really a big proponent of Tranquils on IO. Just because I ended up playing 5 position so much, and when you're having to buy other items like wards and stuff, just having that regen will always help you, just help sustain the carry, keep you full HP and always in the action, not having to walk back to base, because that's the big downside of having a Bottle, right? I think you even mentioned it in your guide when I went over, is having Bottle means that not only do you have to go to runes, which can lead you to die to like a roamer, or like if you're actually contesting the real rune, either your mid might want it or the enemy mid might be there or something like that, and if that doesn't happen, you have to walk back to base, and in that time, who knows what's going to happen to your carry, especially if they're 3k MMR. You're not in there to heal them, you're not there to tether them to help them get away. You just walk back to base, because even in my games, I walk back to base, refill my Bottle, and I just find my carry or my other support they just completely died at that point. They got dove, and even if like I point everything out, I was like, I need to walk back to base, refill my Bottle, and it just doesn't work out sometimes. And having the Tranquils and Soul Ring allows you to just always be a presence in the lane. And I did watch a replay yesterday of my friend who also is an IO spammer. He's I think he's like 8 or something on the Dota buff leaderboards. I don't know if you know him. He's like Magic or something. And he goes by Magic. He also builds Soul Ring. So he built Soul Ring before Bottle. He ends up going both, but he rushes Soul Ring. So he starts with a similar build to you. I think he goes a little bit less regen, maybe opting for, I think, only 1 Fairy Fire or none. But he does go Soul Ring first into Bottle. And have you ever considered doing that? Because yesterday I played one game where I did go Soul Ring and I kind of missed my Bottle, and I think that's just why he also built a Bottle.
I think I have. I think I would be nervous that it would slow down my item progression too much to get both, because I think I know your answer to this question is that you would probably also get Tranquil Boots after those 2 items. Is that right?
Yeah, or you just skip boots in general, but we went over before why that can be pretty rough, especially when you're playing with teammates that don't really coordinate with you well. I like to just talk a little bit about that, where yeah, it is a thing for IOs to actually go without boots. If you watch some professional players, they do it, but it's really important that you have a teammate that will position themselves properly so you can get yourself away or in a good position in a team fight. Otherwise, if you just like tether in and you find yourself without boots, like your carry can just leave you for dust, especially a carry like a Luna who's pretty fast, and then you're just stuck there, probably like, for example, like next to an Omnite with Degen Aura, and you're just dead.
Yeah, 100% dead.
Or like so many times where I did go bootless, that just happened to me, especially in pubs where I just stopped doing it in general, unless I'm playing with someone who I can really trust, or against heroes that I don't really care that they're gonna like get on top of me and kill me or anything like that. But I do really like the Tranquil Boots, and I've even gone Tranquil Boots and Windlace on Io just for the extra move speed. It's something for me is just fun to just move that fast with the tether, and you just can juke and jive heroes like Ursa and stuff like that, and it's definitely a thing that I see a lot in your replays and your highlights. Is that something that you find happening a lot in your games, where you just see someone go on top of you and then you kind of tether away, come back in, and then get the kill? Because
I definitely get Glimmer Cape for that reason. We were also discussing earlier that I don't tend to prioritize mechanism too much. I tend to prefer Glimmer Cape over mech, and it's definitely for that reason. I think I say it in my guide is that, you know, a lot of people will want to go mech because the idea of IO is to keep other people alive, but if you yourself are dying constantly, you're probably just going to get reported. So being able to keep yourself alive, being able to drop aggro on other players, and there are some great Glimmer Cape tricks that you can use with Relocate, splitting it into Shadow Amulet and using the Shadow Amulet to keep yourself invisible when you go back to a bad Relocate, stuff like that. It's I say it has more versatility than a mech, but that's just me.
Yeah, I actually did that once in a game. It definitely confused the enemy team. I mean, if it worked in 5K MMR, it's definitely gonna confuse them in 3K when they're not likely carrying dust or any type of detection.
They probably don't even know how IO works, and they go, "How did he just not relocate back? He just didn't want to? Okay, fine." And then they just leave. Yeah.
Yeah, and especially with the mech, you kind of want your teammates just to group up and end the game. And I've played on 3K before on like my friend Smurf. He just let me try it out, and trust me, people do not group up and end the game early in 3K MMR. They do their own thing. They farm the jungle AFK.
Jungle.
And at that point, just having the Glimmer to keep yourself alive and effective in a team fight, I feel like will be a more effective build in general. And even at higher MMR, I still build Glimmer a lot of times. In a lot of my games, if you look at my recent games, I don't build mech a lot at all. It's just something that I don't really feel the need to build anymore, unless we're just stomping and I just want to end the game, and we are 5-manning. So I think, yeah, in pubs, especially if you're playing like a more support 5-position IO and you're not getting that much farm, and the way I can differentiate that is like when you're playing against heroes that you just can't show in lane against, because IO actually is a fast farmer. Do you ever find yourself farming with IO, like if you get the downtime? I think I did see you push out a couple waves in your replay, so I think it is something you do, because like one thing about him is with level 4 orbs you can immediately blow up a creep wave.
Yeah, not only can you blow up a creep wave, but you can stack 2 neutral camps at once in different areas. You can, you know, by expanding and contracting the orbs, you can kill multiple neutral camps at once. And that allows you not just to farm, but to farm faster than some heroes that you would think would be a lot better than an IO. So yeah, and a lot of people don't think of that, especially the newer players. A lot of people sort of ask me how I have so much gold at minute X. And there's a lot of quick farming that can go into the hero that not a lot of people think about.
Yeah, you can just take out a medium camp even without max orbs. Like level 2 orbs, you can take out a medium camp fairly quickly. If you look at like this big stack right here, once you get level 7, you can actually just clear it by yourself pretty efficiently, just having the orbs run through, because the one thing about the orbs is they do the creep damage, as you see if you read the description, but the hero damage also can be done to the creeps once the orb explodes, right? So when you resummon your orbs, they explode, they do the full hero damage to the creeps, and that's in addition to all the creep damage, and that's just the damage that the orbs do as they pass through the creep wave, and you have 5 of them, so they're just constantly doing that damage as long as you keep them at a certain angle to hit the creeps. And what's going on here with the chain frost? Alright, let's I've been spamming Lich in the past few weeks, and that's actually the only reason I did it, is that chain frost bounces. But let's just talk a little bit more about this game, as we've been talking about just some overall things about the hero. But I was watching the replay before, and I noticed that you did go for the small camp pull in this replay, and I think that is something that's very important for IO, especially if you're in a tri lane. and especially if you're against some type of dual lane, because you want to hit level 2 quickly, because that's either going to give you the overcharge, which you didn't actually go for this game. You went for the spirits, which I think is just fine. It's something that I go myself as well, in a lane where you really need some extra damage for the kill. And I think in this lane against the Omni as well as the Warlock, having the extra nuke damage from the spirits, level 2 spirits of course does double damage from level 1 spirits.
Yep.
And it's like what, like 250 damage or something. It's significant when you hit all your spirits. So now you hit level 3 spirits and you're gonna be able to clear the jungle camp. And there's an example of that where you can use your spirits to help your carry kill neutrals, and it's really important when you're like playing with like Bristleback or something, or any hero that you're sacking for, and you can just clear through the camp so much faster. Sometimes you end up stealing a little bit of the last hits, but it's not really that big of a deal. And alright, everyone just comes to your lane. This is the ideal scenario when you're playing Io, where you just had a good lane and then everyone just shows up to your lane, including their mid, their off lane, and you just show up, you heal, and you kill everyone.
And this is where that regen comes into play as well. I think I popped my last Fairy Fire to keep Invoker from dying. I would have to watch it again to be sure, but
we can rewind and check. I believe you did. So you didn't have it. Hold on. Yeah, here you go. Are you gonna watch it right now?
I think I'm a couple seconds behind you, but yeah, go for it.
Comes with a save. Maybe the Fairy Fire wasn't necessary, but it definitely gave him the confidence to turn around at least. And because you could also use your salve there, but now you have it for later. I mean, at this point, like, what is a Fairy Fire doing? So it was perfectly acceptable just to use them all, because plus 2 damage. What was I gonna do? And
yeah, it's nice harassment in the beginning, especially if I'm sitting. Obviously, we had a tri-lane this lane, so I was a bit more focused on pulling. But that harassment is nice in the early game, but after about minute 5 or 7, it's not really necessary anymore.
Yeah, this is something I would do with Io, where I went for like a more aggressive build, and I call it like the get first blood or be screwed build. I mean, it was kind of dumb, but I went for 2 gauntlets because people don't expect Io to hit so hard, or just hit them in general in the early game for like anything. And if it was like a susceptible offlane that was like this was like back in the day when, of course, Arn had a different build up. People weren't spamming Poor Man's Shield and there was no Shrine. But because I stopped going that build, but it was just a blast from the past where I noticed I would have a similar playstyle. Not in this game, because in this game you were playing against kind of a rough, not a rough. They had a lot of sustain with the Omni as well as the Warlock, so it was not really worth it to just try to trade with them. And I did like that you did go for the pull, but if you're playing against like a hero that didn't have as much sustain, you can just keep hitting them and you surprise them with your damage and then end up going for a kill. And then if you get first blood, there's your bottom.
Yeah, that's essentially my build for when I still play mid IO. Obviously, they've changed how Earn works, so I kind of have to rework it after 7.05. But yeah, those 2 gauntlets in even mid lane with a Fairy Fire makes you hit a lot harder than people think. I tend to think that because people don't play IO and they don't know how IO works, that works to your advantage in so many ways. People think that you're very weak, they think that you have no damage output, and that really runs in your favor when you know what you're doing. It's a big advantage that if you put a couple hours into learning the hero, people think you're a 0 and you come out a hero pretty quick.
Especially level 7 Io, that's when people really underestimate the hero. They go in and they're like, oh, what is he? We're probably going to see an example of that right now. You might die though. Oh no, never mind. Tether. Oh no. This is the most annoying thing when you're playing Io though. Fatal Bonds, or any damage over time, especially Fatal Bonds, because a lot of times you find yourself close to your carry, so all the damage they're taking, you're taking, then you can't bottle. Well, you don't have a bottle, but you can't earn, you can't do anything. If you don't get hit, I guess you can get the Chankro's regen, but Fatal Bonds is one of the bane of my existence to see on the enemy team.
Yeah, I think my go-to move would be to relocate out, but obviously mine was on cooldown at the time.
Yeah, I was gonna say that, but I didn't pay attention to the cooldown. Assuming it was, 10 seconds.
Yeah.
That's sad. Yeah, you could have relocated out there pretty easily.
No, I couldn't have. It was it was well, yeah.
Yeah,
Normally I
yeah,
could
if
have,
you had it, if you had
not
it.
this time.
Yeah, not
Yeah.
this time. So let's check the game right now. The net worth is really even. So this is in one of the scenarios where you find yourself like doing pretty okay in the lane. Your score is 4-1. Let's look at the Luna. She has a pretty good score as well. Her farm isn't the greatest. I think that just goes down to her lane mechanics, but the game is kind of even now, and there's an enemy Slark on the team, and I think that's a hero that is pretty good against Io because he's always a threat for you, right? So you can't really show yourself alone, farming the jungle, doing anything by yourself, and even if you're next to a carry, if they can't really stop the Slark from killing you, and most carries can't because he can just use his ult, of course, right? You find yourself having to like group up, but that's what the Slark is doing, as he actually will just get baited into your team. So maybe not the case if the Slark isn't really aiming for you, and instead he's just wanting to team fight. And that's where you're gonna have the advantage as an IR, right? Because your teammates are always gonna be near you. If the Slark goes on your teammate, you can heal them. But he's one of the worst heroes to play against. I don't know. I mean, I think Slark is a pretty common hero in like 3K MMR.
Sure.
What about the games where you find yourself playing against a Slark and like he's actually just going for ganks instead of trying to team fight? What are your ways to deal with him? Because of course, first thing, right, is just to buy a Ghost Scepter, because you kind of need it if it's like a farming game and the Slark is hunting you heavily. But you ever find that happening or no?
Yeah, I think much like the counter to Bloodseeker's ultimate, you always want to have TPs on you. Having your relocate off cooldown is really important. And like if I am showing myself, like I think at this point in the game, 18 minutes 13 seconds for me is probably a bit behind you. I'm showing myself alone in the lane, and I don't have my relocate on cooldown, which is pretty dangerous. But if I do have a relocate, I know that I can get myself out. If there are creeps nearby, in fact, Slug's running for me now. If creeps are nearby, I can tether to I can break his pin by tethering to creeps, and then if I mean, even if he pops his ultimate in a very low health scenario, I can still hit him in his ultimate with my orbs. And I've killed Slarks that way. Slarks that they dive in too deep, they're trying to run out, they pop their ultimate to try and regen, and you do 500 magic damage in 3 seconds, and they just can't heal through that. Unfortunately, I got that lion ult on me. That was a bit sad.
Yeah, Slark is Slark is your I was gonna say your bitch pretty much when you're high level above him, and especially when he is still like under leveled, under farmed, especially in the laning stage. Like a lot of times where I did like IO slaughter off lane, he can't do anything at that point. He gets hit by the orbs and he's out of HP, and sure, even if he does have level 6, it takes him a while to regen that back up, and many times I've been able to bully Slark out of lane. It's like when he does get like his Echo Saber, Silver Edge, whatever, is when he becomes a big threat.
Yes. Also, it's very embarrassing that I misclicked that in TB. That sucks.
Yeah, I saw that. So you did juke the Slark there. That's because the Lion wasn't respecting you, actually. He could have just fingered you immediately, but he was like, I'm not going to waste a finger for Io. You juke him around the tower, and you end up baiting him into dying. I'd say that's... I mean, Lion could have just definitely ended you there. He did, at the end of the day, still use the finger. That was after his Slark was already too deep. But yeah, you saw there. You do have a lot of ways to deal with Slark. You can't just tether away or relocate out. TP out as well, but like later in the game, if he is focusing you, you either need your Glimmer or your Ghost Scepter, and you are going for Glimmer here. And a Ghost Scepter, I only go when the Slark or the enemy team is always on point with their detection, and the Glimmer is no longer going to help me.
I absolutely agree. Ghost Scepter is a bit more of a backup item. If Glimmer is not working, if it's not enough, if the Slark gets really smart, he starts carrying Dust, that's sort of the next item I would go to. But Glimmer, because it has all that variation and variety, you can use it. It's definitely my first go-to.
Because you never want to buy Ghost Scepter, right? You just kind of have to sometimes.
Kind of have to, yeah. Well said, well said.
Like when there's like a PA that will just one shot you, or like an Ursa that's always going on top of you, and it also forces them to buy into like a diffusal blade eventually, right? And that just is a 1,500 gold item for you, and it's forcing them to buy a much more expensive item to just deal with you. Because a lot of times, if they're not focusing you, you're gonna be able to just relocate the carry or keep them alive with your regen, and then they can't kill anybody.
Yep. Let alone the idea that if they don't have dust, using Ghost Scepter buys time for your Glimmer Cape to come off cooldown, so you can go invis Ghost Scepter and then go invis again. You know, stuff like that.
No doubt, with both those items, you can pretty much kite the enemy carries indefinitely, especially with your tether as well. So
yeah,
it's really hard for them to track you down once you have both items. They really are reliant on like getting some type of stun, whether if they have an abyssal or a basher or something, just to chain lock you down. If you're able to move freely, you're gonna get out pretty much every time. Especially if you relocate as well, you can relocate to somewhere else in the fight or just back to base. So in this game, I noticed you're actually splitting away a little bit from the Luna. What was your thought process here right now? Are you just seeing that there's farm on the map that's not being taken, or you think that you like need items in this game to stay relevant because you are playing against a Slark? And I've had many scenarios where you end up under farming against a Slark and then you feel like you're useless when it comes to the mid game or late game.
Yeah. I think at that point I wanted to drop Luna top because there was free farm for her. No one was going up there. I mean, I don't mean to speak out of turn because I am part of this MMR bracket, but in the MMR bracket, people covering towers, like, they would much prefer to jungle than just to move to a tower and push the creeps out. So I moved Luna up there. She gets solo free farm. And I think I was feeling quite confident at this point because I had just gotten my Glimmer Cape. So I thought even if Slark did pounce me, I would sort of have enough to go invis and tether backwards to the next creep wave and keep myself alive.
And you have relocate as well. So you're pretty okay unless the Shadow Fiend like just channels Requiem on you. The line doesn't have a blink yet, so yeah, I agree. It is pretty okay for you to play like this. It's just when you're playing against like opponents that actually will go for you, it's kind of risky to do this. But in this case, you already had your Glimmer, and I think it's perfectly fine to do this. And I definitely agree with what you're saying is. I mean, trust me, even in 5K, some players will prefer to farm the jungle over defend a tower or push out the lanes, which is actually something that's pretty bad in Dota, because if your lanes aren't pushed out, they're constantly under your tower. Not only is it giving the enemy vision that the creeps provide you, but it's just unnecessary damage, and without lane control as well. For example, let's say if your creep wave are pushing into the enemy tower, that just opens up so much more plays, because at that point they're gonna have to be the ones that TP in and defend it. Where let's say if the creeps are at your tower, I mean, someone has to be there, or you're taking damage, or the enemy knows that no one's there, so they pretty much have more information than you, depending on where the creep equilibrium is. This is past the laning stage, right? But I think it's something important, and it's not a lot of, or it's not what a lot of players even think about. Especially if they're like a carry that's like just thinking about farm. I need to get the most farm as possible.
I mean, let alone the very basic idea that you get more farm from pushing the lane out than you do from jungling. Especially since the 7.06 update, when they reduced all jungle gold and XP by 20%. It was more farm for creeps in the beginning, and it's even more farm now to go to lane over jungling.
I think a lot of it has to do with people just having like they just want to just go to the next jungle camp and they don't look at the lanes. It's like kind of like a map awareness thing, but it's definitely something that can open up a lot of plays for you as IO. And since we're like approaching the mid game now, there's multiple ways you can approach this game, right? One of them is just to like group up and just try to 5-man down the enemy team, which seems like what your team is doing right now, because they just used a Warlock Golem in that previous fight there. They lost like 4 heroes, and you took 2 towers, or 1 tower. You took their tier 2. I know you took the tier 2 for sure, and even went high ground a little bit there. And if you look at Luna's farm, is looking pretty good in terms of the Slark. He's not really a big threat. He bought that Shadow Blade, but he hasn't even bought his second item yet. You know, he's just hunting for an Invoker and not gonna get him. So yeah, at this point, it looks like you're gonna just group up with your team. Did the Lich Go mech this game? He did.
Yes.
So this is one of the games where you have a mech on your teammate, which is really great if you're playing Io, because I mean it is an item that is really good on you because you can always secure the. I'm looking at Lich right now. Right there you go. So you relocate top, find an Omni Knight. Wait, let's go back for that. This is something I want to talk about. Aggressive relocates. So let's look at your player perspective. I mean, from my perspective, this looks like a pretty ballsy relocate. Were you like, at this point, were you like thinking like for sure we're just gonna be able to kill them? Because you're going on not only an Omni Knight but a Shadow Fiend. If he was like really paying attention, and Slark also showed in your jungle, so there's a high potential he could have been there. I mean, it worked out for you as you got out just fine, but because that's one thing I noticed with your relocates where you kind of just go in and most of the time it works out, but trust me, I've gone with the same mentality, and when you're playing against like people who know what they're doing, it just will actually lose you the game and make your teammates flame you as well, and it's actually a bad feeling, so I don't want that to happen to you. So were you really actually thinking that through fully, or are you just saying, alright, there's heroes here, I'm just gonna kill them?
I totally know where you're coming from. I think as a personal trait, a lot of my relocates are very instinctual, and I think, okay, we just have to be there now. And I'll grab the strongest player I can see in my field of vision, and we go. I think specifically that one, I thought we could at least get one of those kills. I can guarantee you I was not thinking about Slark in the jungle. If he had come out, we would have definitely died. And yeah, that was risky. I don't really have an excuse for that one. Something I need to personally work on is slowing down my relocates, thinking through A, where to position, and B, if they're worth going in the first place.
Yeah, because, I mean, trust me, I've been in the same spot where you just get really confident on the hero, especially when you're playing at, like, the skill level, because, I mean, I was at this skill level a couple years ago when there was, like, no rank yet. I would say pretty much we were playing at 3K MMR at that point. It is the same thing. People wouldn't respond properly. Like, half of them didn't even know what the hero did. Like, they didn't even look at the minimap and saw the blip coming in. So, like, for example, like, this Shadow Fiend, if he was really on point, like, he would have just went to the dot and just channeled Requiem. And it would have done a ton of damage, and you'd have to pre-glimmer. Otherwise, you might have just been immediately bursted. But he clearly just wasn't paying attention at all. Did he even use Requiem there? I don't think he even did.
I don't think so.
Yeah, so...
I think in my defense, I did check to see if Luna had her ultimate, and I knew that if we sort of came in, it would force Omni to repel, which would leave one of them, either SF would have to go invis to dodge the damage. It would break up their potential two-man kill ability. But yeah, it was pretty ballsy, and there have been totally times where I don't want to say that I've thrown games, but I've probably thrown games from really bad relocates with the team carry. I see one guy, it turns out to be four guys, we both die, they push take towers, and the game's over. So yeah, it's definitely something for people who are listening. You need to think about it a little bit harder than I just did.
Yeah, because especially when you played so many games, and in so many games the enemy didn't do anything about it, but it just takes a couple of games where they actually do, and it just makes you feel real bad. And the first experience where that actually happened to me is when, in recent memory, is when I was playing with Samael again. This is when I was just still climbing. I was probably like around 5.5 or something like that, and Samael didn't care about his MMR, so he was just like 6k. And even now, he's not even that high MMR, but I relocated him into like a really bad spot. I remember he was playing Juggernaut, and he was like, "What are you doing?" And like, I couldn't even explain myself. It's just you look at it, it seems good, and then suddenly everyone is there, and then you just relocated him to die, or relocated your carry to die when they could have been farming or doing whatever. And especially when you're playing at a higher MMR, like a big play like that, for example, like you can afford to do that a couple times at 3K, but you do that once in like a higher MMR game, and that might just be game because you did that. So then it puts a lot of pressure on you, and that's when I really started to be wary. And I would even consider like if a hero was even worth killing or not, because before when I was playing, this was like a couple years ago when I was still playing with my friends, I would see any hero, could be a support, could be anything, they were alone on the map, I would relocate right on them, free kill, easy gold, right? But now I really consider, is it even worth killing them? Do I just want to save my relocate so that I can use it defensively and things like that? And I think was almost traumatized by so many times where because like after 2,000 games, this is not the first time that or last time where that's gonna happen, right? Every time it just actually adds to the pain where you kind of remember, oh crap, I lost this game, or bring back all the times where you've done it in the past, and it kind of just builds up, and you kind of get a sense where you don't want to relocate in that way, because I feel like that's what happened to me. Probably hasn't happened to you yet, because in a lot of sense you can get away with it, as we saw there, but yeah, trust me, if you ever get higher MMR, you're playing against like opponents that are gonna punish you, it just feels super bad, especially if like your teammates were like depending on you to win the game or whatever. And I noticed this a lot like when I was still grinding out party, and I was around like 5.5 party or something like that, and it was pretty much me and my friend, and we were gonna carry the game, and if every mistake we made, we were gonna lose it. Pretty much like the entire game was on us. So when that much pressure is put on you, that's when you learn to be really cautious with the plays that you make. But I mean, at this point, I mean, if you want to have fun, relocate in, go YOLO divide and kill it. I still make a couple of plays like that, and my teammates are like, we get out with like 10 HP or like some. Most of the time, I don't do it on enemy or players anymore. I do it on buildings. Do you ever find that happening where you actually use relocate to rat? Because I don't. It clearly wasn't a case in this game. And how often do you find yourself having to use relocate to rat or just split push in general?
Not particularly often. It depends on the length of the game, obviously. I think the way that you tend to find it is when it is a very long game. I mean, I even, in my personal item build, I have Desolator in there just in case it's getting to the point where the only way we're going to win this game is by ratting with Io relocate, pushing towers, grabbing the biggest, baddest carry we have, and waiting for the backdoor protection to break on a tower, getting in, and just 12 seconds of overcharge, and just go, 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 go. Glimmer cape yourself to try and hide from them hitting you, and then just get out. It happens, and it can work. I think you tend to die more often than stay alive, but at that point, you're sort of throwing yourself in kind of a suicide bomber way into the tower. If you do it enough times, they just can't stop you. Then again, if you team wipe in the process, they can come and counter push, and that's really bad. It definitely happens, but I try to not have to win games that way. Because
those are the special games, I call them, where when you're buying things like BKB on Wisp and Desolator, Heart, things like that, when it gets to that point, Octarine, things like that as well, just for the lower relocate cooldown and other things like that. The heal from the spirits, if you actually go the spirits damage, is pretty ridiculous as well. My game client's out of date. Crap. But the replay is over. There was not much more to say about it towards the end. It was just a couple of things I pointed out. We were not really focused much on the replay. We weren't focused at all on the replay, to be honest. But I just more wanted to have a discussion rather than just to, as I said, do a coaching session, because this is not really what I want to do. And we might go back. Are you available to do like some more of these and make this like a series? Because I feel like there's a lot to be said about Io. We've already been talking for an hour and 10 minutes, and I feel like we barely touched the surface with the hero.
Holy moly, has it been that long?
It's been an hour. Well, probably not an hour of recording. I've been live for, I think I've been live for an hour. Wait, let me tab out and check. I've been live for an hour. The recording itself has been about 30 minutes because the game has been 30 minutes, right? But we've been talking before this, so we pretty much have been talking for an hour. Not recording though, but yeah. I'm down to do more of these, but I think we can just wrap things up, or we can go into one of my own replays. Would you be interested in going over one of my own replays from yesterday with me?
Sure.
All right.
Absolutely.
This is gonna be a pretty short game. There was just a straight stomp, but I want opinion from you, from what you noticed from my gameplay. So we're actually gonna be more focused on the game this time, which is gonna be weird. But because I feel like I already did like that full analysis on your gameplay, and there's not much more to say. So with you here, I just want to discuss certain things about the hero, how you think about things like that relocate, for example, how you approach the laning stage, which I feel like we've covered pretty well. But I think there's late game to be covered for the hero, but we really need to find a specific replay to really get that. We can talk about it, but unless we provide like a visual example, it's kind of hard for the audience to understand, especially if they're not IO players themselves. But yeah, like back to what we were trying to say about like the BKB and things like that. I played a Battle Cup game where I remember that was a rat game, if any, where I was IO with a Lycan, and we literally could not end the game because they had a Tinker Spectre, but we just slowly took down their buildings. Where I bought BKB, we would actually run our other 3 teammates in to just die and create space, and we would relocate Lycan and just hit their racks. And we slowly got Mega Creeps, we slowly got tier 4s, and slowly got the throne. But that was definitely a rough game, and it's definitely not a game that you really want to play. And I bring up this replay because this is kind of like the ideal IO game where things just go your way, and it's pretty much a full stomp, and it's all through the laning stage. So
yeah,
let's get into this replay
seems,
here.
Pretty damn strong. So
yeah.
I imagine this one should be over quick.
This one was probably over in the first 10 minutes. Oh, what was going on? But so I actually randomed IO this game, I believe. I was not planning on playing it because I just lost 2 games with IO, and I was like, all right, I'm done on randoming. I don't care anymore. And then I get IO, and I'm like, all right, I'll take it.
Can't turn that down.
My teammates, of course, were questioning. They're like, do you even play? And I'm like, do I even play? And we'll see what happens in this game. So the reason why they asked me was like, because they're like, did you random IO? Because they didn't even realize I randomed him, but they saw that I started with a bottle. And I guess, I mean, this is something you used to be able to do, right? Is to buy bottle at level 1. I mean, you played back then, right? Was that something that you did commonly? It's not really relevant anymore, but I'm just curious.
I think I've been doing Soul Ring Tranquils for the longest time. I practice with bottle into stick, urn, arcane boots, mechanism, guardians, and then you sort of play it by ear from there. I definitely screw around with that build, but it's not my main go-to. I think you got in the best case scenario possible, getting that extra random money on IO, so you can have not only tangos but also a bottle out the get-go. That's pretty much the place that you want to be.
Yeah, random. I was like so happy. Like normally, like you have to buy like the other items as well, and I had a warlock on my team, so I didn't have to buy any of the support items. I think I might have bought a courier or something. Let me just check. I can tell if it's my courier or not because I have a pretty distinct looking courier. Nope, it's his courier. He's just a donkey. So yeah, I didn't have to buy any of the support items. I might have bought a ward. I don't even know. We should be able to tell with the gold. I think I re-randomed into IO. So I didn't buy a ward. I think the warlock did buy everything, but I mean that's besides the point. This normally doesn't happen where you random IO and you're an IO player. So let's just start off the game here. I try with the range creep tether block here, where I just want to send it in front. The reason behind this is because the thing is, if you kill your range creep off fast, it allows Ursa to play a lot more aggressively, right? Because if your range creep dies, the enemy creep wave is not dying fast, and your creep wave is also pushing under your tower, so it pretty much allows Ursa to just dive the Abaddon, play aggressively, do it whatever he wants, but I miss it there. The range creep doesn't end up going in front.
Yeah.
So we just have a normal lane, and here I try for first blood, and I know that if right in my mind is we might or might not get this. We actually, spoiler alert, we don't, because he gets under the tower. I think it's actually my Ursa's fault here. He didn't attack move correctly, because he did have a wind lace. There's no reason why this guy should not die.
Oh yeah, I see that. He sort of runs and then has to he doubles back.
Yeah, he doubles back for a second, so we don't get him, and then we're kind of in a not even a bad position. We have a warlock, but this is when I go immediately to pull, and I don't make it in time. I'm like, oh crap. So now I'm forced to pull at 20 here, and right now, what do you think I'm thinking, or what was my plan for this game right now? Or what would your plan be for this game? I
have no idea what you're thinking. I think despite our similarity of opinions, you still think on a very different level than I do when it comes to the hero. But I don't know. I would be going the basic item builds, getting a stick, getting an urn, just trying to set up for some team play down the road.
All right, so that's. So if it was you, you'd just be sitting here, just trying to help out your Ursa as much as you can and slow down this Abaddon, right?
Oh, well, I know that because you're in a tri-lane, you want to be focusing more so on pulling. Because I think Warlock has a little bit more lane presence with his spells and with his melee damage, and obviously you're a bit more healer with your bottles. So focusing on stacking camps for your Ursa, pulling into your allied creep waves, etc. That would sort of be my focus.
Everyone wants to invite me to. Oh, hold on, I'm gonna go offline real quick here on Steam so I don't get invited to parties. But so what I was thinking in this game is, all right, this is Ursa. I'm gonna tether him right now. I'm gonna do a little more harass to the Abaddon, but he does not need me against Abaddon, right?
Okay.
Because Ursa completely dominates the lane, just let alone by himself, but with the Warlock especially. The Warlock is just gonna keep him sustained and not needed for this lane. So I already said it. If we don't kill the Abaddon in this lane, I was thinking about this before using the laning stage. If we don't kill Abaddon in this lane, I'm going top. Once the Darkseer gets level, we can just dumpster the Luna. And guess what happened? We dumpster the Luna. So okay. This is something that you probably wouldn't have thought about, right? I'm assuming.
I would have thought Darkseer is a very self-sufficient offlane hero, and that if I went up there with him, I'd be taking his levels, possibly taking a last hit or two, and Darkseers get kills, you know, sometimes, but you know, you don't see too many 12-kill Darkseers. So I would never have thought this. This is very interesting.
So yeah, I didn't care about Mercer anymore. He's gonna be free farming against the Abaddon. So I also look at the game and I noticed that they have a jungle Bloodseeker. So he's not gonna provide anything to the lane. So notice I bought a TP from the side shop. I TP top. We get first blood onto the Lion, and funny enough, in the bottom lane, we also get a kill on Abaddon without me. So I was not needed there. I get first blood, and this is the beginning of the end for the enemy team, pretty much. And Darkseer also has already been setting up a huge stacks for himself here. So everything is going well. I was waiting on the rune here, and I did realize that the Bloodseeker would come in, but I knew that I can get away with tether, no big deal. So I wasn't really worried.
Just to point out, this is only a play, that Darkseer kill is only a play you can make with Bottle. With a Soul Ring Tranquils build, that would not have worked, because if you wouldn't have been able to provide the same amount of regen, health regen in such a short period of time to keep him from being pressured.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, in this game, that's why a lot of times Bottle is just going to be better than Soul Ring, unless you're just specifically set to just do one thing, which is to support your carry. And in like higher MMR games, you can't really afford to do that sometimes, because for example, let's say I did stick with Ursa and we just try lane, like Abaddon will be shut down, but in no way will this Luna just be completely removed from the game. And this game was just a perfect storm for us pretty much, because not only was our bottom lane doing pretty well, Sniper is doing well as well, and I made the difference by just completely destroying this top lane. So that's when their game just ended there.
I see. Interesting.
So, and just notice what we're able to do with the Darkseer now, and they can't touch us.
I'm surprised that they can't touch you, because you know technically Lion has 2 crowd control spells. Luna has a crowd control spell as well.
The problem for the Lion is he went the mana drain.
Oh well, yeah, he sort of set himself up for failure there.
And the lane snowballs, right? The further ahead we get, the more damage we start doing, and then even if they are crowd controlling us, he's just gonna surge up. And we also have the tether for move speed. And the fact that they already gave away first blood means that they're gonna have a super rough time in this lane. And the only way for them to solve it is to bring more heroes. And you'll see they try to bring more heroes, but we got way too far ahead. Way too fast, and it did not work out for them. And now we have the Shrine as well to heal up, and that's why I like dual offlane with Io in a lot of scenarios, because you do have the Shrine. So when you go for like aggressive plays, you're diving, you can heal back up, come back to the lane, and you get more regen, of course, with the Shrine as well when you tether. It's also lucky I got a haste rune. Notice right before TPing I found a haste rune, and that's I don't think it was necessary for the first blood, but it definitely secured it. Even if he was gonna get away, I was gonna be able to chase him. And so now my itemization, I just went for boots because I know that I can be caught in a pretty bad position if like my Darkseer leaves me behind or something like that. I don't want to be left bootless, and I go for the magic stick just to have a burst heal because we are playing very aggressively right now, and that should allow me to stay alive and keep the Darkseer alive as well. And we have a huge stack to farm here. I was looking at this. I'm like, this is ridiculous. The fact that this guy set it up, and I think their support stacked for them a couple of times as well. But they're not gonna be able to farm it. But we are with the Iron Shell. So after we take that, like we're pretty much done because this guy gets so far ahead. If you look at his, well, it hasn't become ridiculous yet, but soon it will. Now, I'll just go back to my player perspective. I also go for the raindrops as well. That will help me block some of the magic damage from the Luna as well as the Lion, and we're just able to play like this right now next to their tier 2.
Yeah, you guys are. Yeah, you guys have found your niche. You've gotten very aggressive, very fast. Raindrops build into Urn as well. I don't know if you build Urn later on, but I always like getting raindrops pretty early because you only need one of the 5 to build into Urn.
Yeah, that was a. I really like the new Urn change actually because not only does it give you armor, which you don't get anymore from Tranquils, it's something you really need on the hero, right? Until you get level 10, then you get 6 armor. But of course, he's a 0 armor hero until then. Pretty much. I mean,
yeah, very, very slow. I think it's one of the slowest armor gains in the game. To start from 0, and I think he only gains 1 armor by level 6. Don't quote me on that, but it's very, very slow. So yeah, I was torn up when they took the armor out of Tranquil Boots, and I was saying this is totally going to mess with the way I play the hero, and then the very next patch they put it back into Urn. I am okay with this.
And I get myself caught out a little bit here, but I'm fine. He's taking a creep wave. Getting the rune, and we're putting so much dominance in this lane now. I'm actually getting both runes, and this is allowing me to sustain, right? And this is where the downside of bottle is. If we weren't this far ahead that we can just bully any hero out of the rune. I can even bully the Bloodseeker at this point if he tries to contest my bounty rune, right? I'm not gonna be able to get this much regen, and I'll be forced to like walk back to base or try to go for the real rune, which puts me at more risk as well as having to walk a lot further away. But this was like one of the biggest changes to the hero since the new patch, was the fact that bounty runes were introduced just because of how reliant Io is on bottle most of the time. And it can be a good thing, it also can be a bad thing because you can't count the amount of times I've died at the rune to like heroes like Treant and Ricky and things like that.
Yep. It creates more places to be contested, and they're closer to lanes, so you're even more likely to be contested as compared to when you had 1 or 2 runes showing up in middle river. But yeah, it definitely is advantageous to the bottle players when you play bottle, because you can get that regen not 100% reliably, but far more so than in previous patches.
Alright, so I was gonna just relocate my Darkseer out, but he decides to TP, so I relocate myself out and bring him back. And just looking at the enemy levels, Luna's not level 5 yet, Bloodseeker's already used his Rupture, so we just come back and they can't contest us, but they do try!
I can't quite see it yet, but I can only imagine how this is gonna turn out.
So Invoker's lucky, he survives. I didn't have enough orbs to kill him.
Yep.
But the rest of them, they're gonna try something. And then unfortunately for Abaddon, he's the one victim. Even though he does have ultimate, it's not gonna matter. And Luna is not even here anymore. I think she's just trying to get her level 6. But I did get level 6 so fast because we took the that huge stack together.
Yep.
And at this point, I'm level 7 and we're unstoppable.
Yeah,
And
that IO orb damage at level 7 is just crazy.
because right now I'm level 7. If you look at the enemy levels, there's a level 3 Lion, level 6 Luna with no farm, Bloodseeker's also level 7, Invoker is just level 8, so he's the highest level in their team. But my Sniper has been doing really good at pressuring him in lane, so Invoker is really a non-factor until he gets a lot of levels up. So we're gonna be able to do whatever we want in this game. And so the tower goes down, and score is 9-11. And in a lot of cases, that doesn't really mean much. But in this case, their game is pretty much over unless they come back in like a huge team fight. And it'll definitely take a really big one. And now I can just relocate Darkseer in to anything. This is when I didn't really care. I know that all the heroes were there, but I knew that we weren't gonna die. We turn around, we get the kill into the Bloodseeker, and I leave him here. Yeah, just leave him here so we can push mid, and meantime, I'm gonna take my tome because I'm playing super greedy at this point. I think Warlock already at level 7. I just wanted, in this game I decided to max tether, just because the extra resistance as well as the attack speed doesn't really, because I was mostly going with the Darks here, and of course he doesn't really benefit from the attack speed at all, and we're so far ahead the resistance doesn't mean much, so I just want the extra move speed. It's partially because I knew how far ahead we are, and I just wanted to try out maxing tether again. It wasn't a thing until back then when we had tether stun. Remember that was when you actually maxed tether in some cases.
I never played IO back that far.
Oh, you never played?
I've only heard Legends, but now obviously that they've changed the level 25 talent, it's been very fun to play around with.
I've only had that happen once, and it was actually just yesterday where I actually got a chance to get level 25 and level tether stun, and I never even got to use it. The game was.
It's fun.
I think I tether stunned creeps that game, and it's because the game was like.
I've used it, and I think we were up against the Storm Spirit, and it's you know, for 40 minutes of the game, your tether is basically a non-spell. The enemy doesn't really worry about it. If you get a slow from it, it's more lucky than it is planned, because if you move yourself too far ahead in an attempt to slow someone with your tether, you can put yourself as an IO in a very poor position and get yourself killed.
Trust me, I've died because of that multiple times for First Blood. Trying to get the tether stun off so we can chase the kill, and then they turn around with like a stun or something and end up dying. I always regret my decision trying to get the tether stun off, because if you look at level 1, it barely lasts for any 0.75 seconds. But I just really play ballsy at First Blood, because I really want to secure my team First Blood, or mostly myself First Blood, so I can get my bottle. And mostly in those are the games where I do go for like kind of similar build to yours, where I buy a little bit more regen and support items as well. And I just get really greedy for First Blood then, and sometimes I get punished super hard for it. It probably lost me a number of games trying to do stuff like that, but it's just a old habit, I guess, playing that aggressively at level 1. Because back then when the tether stun was a thing, you said Storm Spirit, right? So you get kills on Storm Spirit where before you tether, I mean, what does he care? I can't attack anymore. 100% attack speed slow, 100% move speed slow. But the stun, in the past you'd be able to kill heroes like Weaver, just straight up, like no detection needed. They can't even go invis. Of course, Storm Spirit, all of the Puck, even he phase shifts, comes out into the tether stun, dies. It was actually ridiculous. I mean, I don't know how often you've played with it, but you can imagine.
Yeah, it's definitely something to try out for sure.
Tabbed out. All right. So this game pretty much is. There's not much more to say about it. So. What do you think about like my decision to go to the offlane like that? Is it something that you would do in your games at all, or it's just not something that you think about, or even if you did, you think it won't work out because like your offlane won't make full use of it? Because it depends, right? Let's say like if you're supporting your carry and you were playing solo queue, your carry just is as likely to be as good as your offlane player. I mean, there should be really no difference between them, right? So, like for example, go back to the game where you had that game that we went over where you had Lich Luna, and there was a Bristleback in your offlane, so there was a potential for you to do offlane that game. So what was your reasoning behind deciding to help out the Luna instead of the Bristol, for example?
I think the big difference between that game and this game in my thought process is that if I'm staying with a Luna, I can keep that Luna full of mana, and I can make sure that Luna is stunning to the point where the lane win is a guarantee. In this match, if I'm with an Ursa, giving Ursa mana, again, this is sort of on the presumption that I'm doing a Soul Ring build. If I'm with an Ursa, giving him mana means nothing, let alone that you already have a Warlock here for healing. I will admit, it's not something I would have immediately thought of, but after seeing this game, it's definitely something I'm going to think about in the future.
Yeah, because especially if you have like an offlane hero that's abusable, lot of times just like junglers, because I know that happens all the time in 3K, right? Just jungle Legion command. What is all these notifications? Do you hear it? Or is it just
Yeah.
What is that?
I don't know.
Click, 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 click. I don't know what that is. That's gonna be annoying for the video, but it's freaking Discord. What is that? I'm trying to figure it out right now.
I hear it through your microphone. I don't hear it on.
Oh, you hear it through me. It's some notification thing. Hold on. Sounds. No. Alright, hold on. This is actually kind of annoying. No sounds.
Leave your viewer questions below in the comments section. Do you have questions about IO? Let us know. We'll get back to you as soon as we can.
Alright, I think that should have solved it.
Okay.
Let's get back to this. We're probably gonna end this soon, but once again, I'd like to welcome you back to do more of these. If you anytime you play a game where you have something interesting to probably maybe talk about with me, feel free to just let me know and we can go over it. Same thing with me. If I run the game where I feel like I can teach the audience something or teach you something, I'm sure to share it with you, call you in, and we can make this a little bit of a series. And we'll see. I just want to teach people how to play Io. It's my favorite hero. When the Arcana came out, I was super hyped about that, and it's just my passion, playing this hero, teaching people about the hero, talking about the hero, and yeah. So back to what we were trying to say is, you're like, do you find yourself doing like dual offlane at all, or just?
Yeah, absolutely. My favorite is IO Pudge. For much the same reason that in a Soul Ring build, Pudge can basically hook every 8 seconds, and if you play with someone who knows how to play Pudge, and I have a friend who he lands his hooks, you know, in ways that in real life you actually have to like you have to freak out in real life because you're like, holy crap, how did you like make that? If you play with someone like that and you can get into an offlane scenario. BB works the same way. Bristleback is a great choice. It's definitely something that I screw around with, but I tend to play with people who are safe lane carries and end up doing that. But yeah, I mean, it all works on the same basis. If you can keep people full of health and mana and allow them to do what they do even better than they normally do it, you have a pretty good shot at winning the lane.
Yeah, because it's something that I did a lot, so I always kind of go back to it. I think it is like my preferred position to play IO because it's the most ballsy. You have the most options to like make plays and dives and things like that from the off lane, more so from like mid or safe lane. Because a lot of times, if you start dominating the off laner too much, he just leaves, right, and goes to jungle.
Yeah. I feel like your impact in offlane as IO is often way bigger. In a direct sense, you know, keeping your carry alive and making sure he farms is obviously very important, but it's much harder to just murder the crap out of the enemy team from the safe lane position as compared to the offlane position, especially because their main carry, their safe lane carry, is in your offlane. So if you can shut down their big fat main carry, it's going to have ramifications for the next 15-20 minutes of the game. It can even win you the whole game.
Yeah, like in this game, the Luna just wanted to farm, right? So she was going to be in lane regardless. So yeah. I just figured right away, there's like, I had this Dark Seer pre-muted as well, but I'm like, you know what? Believe in him. Who knows what's going to happen, right? He doesn't do well, but I come in the off lane, I'm going to help him out. We're going to get kills, and we just won the game straight off of that. And that's how things go. I think having this versatility with the hero is like important in terms of when it comes to playing solo queue and winning your games. So that's why I like to point out this replay. I just remembered it and I was like, this is like the exact opposite of how you play the hero, right? So I like to just point it out to see what your thoughts are on it. So
I am still very impressed that you were able to do that much against Lion, who obviously was quite a low level. I don't know if he was pulling a lot and staying in the jungle, but the fact that you guys were able to do that much and move that freely against someone who should theoretically be made of crowd control, hey, it won you the game.
Yeah, because Lion's a very rough hero to play against. In terms of trying to play aggressive, right? Because you should have 2 stuns or whatever, but his mistake there was just going for the mana leak, and that pretty much ended their save lane experience at all. They couldn't do anything at that point. The fact that he didn't have 2 stuns, and he was just missing his stuns at some point as well because we were moving so fast with the surge and the tether.
Yeah, I see him missing them even now. So yeah, better luck next time, kid.
And I mean, a lot of it, my decision behind that was just the jungle Bloodseeker. I knew that he wasn't gonna do anything, right? And I can't just support Ursa and allow him to free farm the jungle and not be punished for it. So I don't punish him by going into the jungle and like pressuring him. Instead, I punish him for it by killing his Luna, right? And that's ways you can make use of or take advantage of a jungle hero. Because a lot of times you see a jungle hero and a lot of people just think, all right, I'm just gonna go and mess with him. And a lot of times that will actually lose you the game because then you go in and mess with the jungler and then like they rotate their mid, they rotate your support and their support, and then you ended up dying or something like that. Let's say like, and you're just being a detriment to your team at that point because you're not really doing anything. Maybe you're sapped a little bit of his levels, but the fact that I saw the opportunity to be able to just kill the Luna, and it came immediately. Like it was like when I was sitting at the rune, I was already telling my teammates. I said this before where I was telling my Ursa, if this lane doesn't work out, we don't just completely kill the Abaddon. I was gonna leave anyway, by the way, like
okay, I see.
So like I was gonna leave regardless. I just wanted to be in the safe lane so I can get the experience from the small camp and the pulls. So I just don't come to the top lane at level 1, right? I made sure I got level 2 first using the neutrals, and then I went top after picking up the haste rune immediately once the Darkseer was around like level 3. And that's something important to consider is your teammates' levels and when you could play aggressive. It really matters more when you're kind of like min-maxing everything and every little thing matters in terms of trying to win the lane, and it just comes with when you're playing against better players that will make use of like timings. For example, like when they get level 3 and they get 2 points in a spell instead of just 1. I mean, I see you do it when you get like level 3, of course. On Io, you go for the 1-2 build, so you're going to be able to play a lot more aggressive. Do you? That's one thing I wanted to ask you is like, do you like tell your teammates things in either through mic or just voice chat, chat wheel, whatever?
Yeah, it tends to be quite important, especially with IO, to be communicative with your team. I know that I tend to go the 1-2 build, and I don't put a point in overcharge because 95% of the time I'm not playing with bottle. If I have bottle, that changes things because you need to be able to drop your own health down in order to make sure that you're healing the carry, and therefore overcharge is way more important. Whereas theoretically, first level overcharge, especially now that it does a 6% drain, it just does a lot of damage for very little output, especially at level 1. It has a secondary feature of dropping your health, so you can bottle people. But if you don't have bottle, getting that second point in spirits is far more functional for me.
Yeah, I go the 1-2 build, and when I have bottle, I always regret it. So I tend to like hurt myself to creep. Like I come up with ways to get my health low, and then sometimes it gets too low, and then I go mid and just end up dying. It happened yesterday, in like a pretty high average. Well, I wasn't high average, but I had some high MMR players. It was this game I lost, I believe. Was it this one? No.
Can I ask you?
Yeah, you can. Feel free to ask me anything.
How do you feel about I know that you have a video on your channel. I haven't watched it yet, but just very briefly, how do you feel about the new Io Arcana? Because I feel that the relocate animation is so obvious now. The blue portal where you're coming in, the flashing when you're about to leave, it doesn't hide anything. How do you feel about that?
For me, like I'm playing at a point where most players like they understand. So like even before, like when it wasn't as obvious, like they're gonna pay attention to their mini map. They're gonna see like the red circle, whatever coming in, or like whatever sound effect it makes. I don't think it makes a sound effect for enemy team, but they're pretty much they realize what's going on. But it was something I immediately thought about. It was like pay to lose, because
yeah.
I was like, I mean, personally, like. I mean, I just like the Arcana. It looks cool. Like even pro players are using it in professional games, so I don't think it's big of a deal. Like maybe at like really low MMR where people like don't realize anything. Like they don't look at the white dots on the map. Or they're playing with like bad graphic settings because they're like playing on like some type of LAN PC or something. It might matter because like a big orange thing is probably gonna stand out more than a couple of like white lines, right? Yeah. But
That makes sense. At the level that you're playing at, people basically know what to expect, and if it's a different shade, a different style, it's still apples and apples. It's still the same thing.
I've still had relocates back where they didn't know where I went, so I
Okay.
mean, it hasn't really affected me that much. Um, but yeah, in the past, I definitely have had times where like I relocated someone out and then I went back and they just didn't know where the dot was or whatever, and I can see like if they see like a big orange thing on the ground, they're like, oh, there he is.
Yeah.
But um,
Especially my thought process is with Glimmer Cape and Glimmer Cape tricks where you activate Shadow Amulet instead, and they're staring at that giant orange dot, and suddenly it just disappears. I think that might cause more questions, more, oh, we should get some dust in here right now, someone drop a sentry right now, than, if just that swirl, that kind of minor swirl just disappeared. And people go, oh, well, that was weird. Okay, let's just leave. When secretly you're standing right in front of them, just invisible.
it is definitely a lot more noticeable. But I mean, it's what comes with the Arcana, right? You want flashy effects, and I mean, you can be discreet or you can have a cool portal.
That is true.
Very sound true. Effect and effect itself. I like the noise it makes. I mean, that's probably my favorite thing about the Arcana, just the noises. Not only like the kill noise, which is always good. Not too often. Like in that game, of course, I got like 9 kills or whatever. But in most games I play, you don't really get that many kills. But it looks like in your games you tend to get a lot of kills. What is your like?
I get nine kill average on Ion.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, I remember those days when you're playing against teammates and you're playing with teammates that don't really secure the kills, and you're always coming in, and like I was known to be like a kill steal master. I try not to do so much that anymore because it actually affects your carries in terms. Like I've had games where like I've taken a lot of the kills and then my carry or my mid player, whoever I'm going with, ends up like a little bit under farmed because they've spent all their time going for the kills. But that doesn't really happen to me anymore. Happens to me anymore. I'm playing in like solo queue. Even if I do take some of the kills, they tend to make it up in terms of the farm that they get, the space that they get anyway. It's only in the scenarios where they're really just playing for kills instead of going for last hits, and some scenarios I can see that happening, especially at lower MMRs where players are not really prioritizing the right things, and like maybe you kill like their offlaner a bunch of times, but then your carry will end up under farmed. I don't know if that ever happens to you.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and then it's just really bad, especially when you end up dying or we both end up dying. You go too far one time for the kill. I remember those times where like we would just be playing for kills, and then we would dive too deep once, and then suddenly the lane got really hard. And a lot of times it would be playing against heroes like Lion or heavy stunners like Witch Doctor as well. Oh, you went quiet. Are you still there? Oh no, he might have disconnected, guys. Alright, I mean, this is a good time to end the video anyway. I'm pretty sure you're disconnected, so say bye to Wisper, everybody. This is a pretty long video. It was pretty in-depth, a bit all over the place, but this is just kind of how I wanted things to be right now. For our first video, I just want to discuss certain things, go over a little bit of his replay. We went over my replay a little bit, and we talked about a lot of things in general about the hero, and I feel like you guys can learn a lot from it. We're gonna for sure in the future make more in-depth guides about specific topics, and that's gonna be more focused, and we're gonna work on the early game, mid game, late game, and things like that. We did discuss through mostly early game and mid game in terms of relocates. We didn't talk much about defensive relocates, and that's kind of a more advanced topic. We'll touch that more in the future. We did talk a little bit about aggressive relocates. Of course, that's when you relocate in to kill someone or a gank, right? And we did talk a fair amount about that. We talked about the early game, what you can do in the early game, what you can build in the early game, and I think that's just fine. So we're going to end the video here, guys, and in the future, make sure you stay tuned for more content like this. If this is your first time tuning in, make sure you subscribe, hit the notification button, whatever. For sure, there's going to be more content like this on YouTube in the future. And so see you guys then. Peace out, everyone. Hope you guys enjoyed.